9. Damien Boyce. Amber Baran was grabbing the mail outside her Indianapolis home one night while arriving home from work when a man approached her with a gun and ordered her to let him inside her house. She bravely refused and instead handed over $100 in cash that she was carrying at the time. The suspect, later identified as 31-year-old Damien Boyce, also allegedly asked Amber if she had a boyfriend and demanded that she add him on Facebook while continuing to point the gun at her chest. Hoping it would get him to go away, she cooperated, and the suspect left the scene on his bicycle. Amber later told reporters that Boyce immediately messaged her after he left the scene with an apology for robbing her. Not wanting to anger or upset him, the young woman responded politely, stating that she understood what it was like to fall on hard times. But Amber's kindness was mistaken for a romantic interest, and she soon began receiving messages asking her to come chill. She said she had a boyfriend and wished Boyce the best, then filed a police report. Boyce was arrested about a month later at the scene of another armed robbery, where he allegedly shot 2 people and hit a third victim in the head with a brick during an argument. He faces a slew of charges in connection with both incidents, including burglary, unlawful possession of a weapon, criminal recklessness, and battery. 8. Jacob Yerkes. In November 2022, a Tennessee man named Jacob Yerkes approached 2 police officers in Lenoir City and openly admitted to chasing after a former coworker who had turned down his romantic advances. He recorded the conversation with his cell phone camera as he explained that he went to the Cracker Barrel restaurant where the woman worked and attempted to woo her over with a song. The woman immediately left the restaurant when she saw Yerkes, who followed her for several blocks as she tried to get away from him. During his conversation with the police, Yerkes accused the woman's father of threatening him over the phone. He made several disturbing statements about women in general, including that he thinks they enjoy being chased and that they secretly fantasize about non-consensual encounters. Investigators soon discovered that Yerkes had allegedly been stalking the woman for several months. After being told by the officers to leave her alone, Yerkes returned to his car and launched into a bizarre diatribe against the LGBT community and how he was trying to turn the woman straight. Following an investigation, he was charged with aggravated stalking and harassment. While the outcome of the case is unclear, records show that Yerkes is currently on probation for a closed criminal matter. 7. Carl Stephen Shaver. After receiving an alert that her phone was being tracked by an Apple AirPod in December 2022, a Des Moines woman found the device on the spare tire of her car. She filed a police report, and the AirPod was taken into evidence. 2 days after the first incident, the woman received another alert that she was being tracked. Police found a second tracking device on her car. A few days later, the woman received a third alert. After being unable to find the device herself, she took her car to a mechanic's shop where employees found it hidden in the vehicle's subframe. During the same several-day period when the devices were planted and discovered, 63-year-old Carl Stephen Shaver showed up at the police station and said he was looking for his wife, who he suspected of having an affair. One of the devices that the victim turned over as evidence had apparently led him to the station. Shaver and the victim were never married and had no prior relationship, and the victim had previously blocked Shaver after receiving unwanted contact from him. In April 2023, Shaver pleaded guilty to 1 stalking count, 3 counts of stalking involving the unauthorized use of GPS, 3 counts of camera electronic surveillance devices, and trespassing. At the time, the judge had yet to approve of a plea agreement that would come with an 11-year suspended prison sentence and 2 years of probation. Records show that Shaver remains behind bars at the Polk County Jail, suggesting that Shaver is still awaiting sentencing. 6. Sidney Powell. 50-year-old Brenda Powell was stabbed nearly 30 times and bludgeoned with a cast iron pan by her own daughter, 19-year-old Sidney Powell, in 2020. The horrific incident occurred at the family's home in Akron, Ohio, shortly after Brenda discovered that Sydney had dropped out of college and kept it a secret from her. Brenda was reportedly on the phone with school administrators when an argument broke out between her and Sydney. She died from her injuries, and Sydney was charged with murder. The trial centered heavily on Sydney's mental health. In the months leading up to Brenda's murder, the former straight-A student was dismissed from university for poor grades. Her roommates noticed that she was sleeping excessively and later described seeing the young woman having major memory blackouts without the use of drugs or alcohol. Sydney's attorneys argued that the young woman was hearing voices at the time of Brenda's death and that she was not guilty by reason of insanity. Experts gave conflicting testimony about whether they believed Sydney was legally insane when she killed Brenda. The jury found her guilty of murder, felonious assault, and tampering with evidence. She's scheduled to be sentenced in October 2023, and the judge will decide whether she serves her time in prison or at a mental health facility. 5. Mauricio Guerrero. In October 2021, an OnlyFans model from New Hampshire received messages from a 19-year-old follower named Mauricio Guerrero, who insisted on buying her a TV and fireplace for her apartment. She gave him her address so he knew where to send the items, but she would soon come to regret the decision to accept the man's gifts. Guerrero visited the woman at her apartment at least 6 times over the next several months. She entertained his company at first, but eventually stopped accepting his visits. The woman would later claim that she was never interested in Guerrero, but he was extremely pushy about meeting, and she eventually caved. In February 2022, she awoke one day to Guerrero standing in her bedroom doorway. Responding officers found him on the roof of the house and discovered items in the attic that suggested someone had been camping out there, including a Bluetooth tracking device, food, and a cup filled with urine. Guerrero told officers that he was staying at an Airbnb nearby and that he had came to the woman's house to take back the TV he had bought her. His phone contained explicit images and videos of the victim that were taken while she slept without her consent or knowledge, and at a time when Guerrero did not have permission to be in her home. Investigators also found an app on the suspect's phone that was connected to a tracking device found on the woman's keys. Guerrero was charged with 5 counts of burglary. In court, his lawyer argued that the young man believed he and the woman were in a relationship. In a bizarre twist, Guerrero claimed that the woman had asked him to fulfill a stalking fantasy by acting obsessed with her. He was convicted of 2 burglary counts and 3 counts of criminal trespass, and was sentenced to a year in jail. 4. Earl Moore Jr. 35-year-old Earl Moore Jr. was experiencing severe alcohol withdrawal when police responded to a gun-related call at his home in Springfield, Illinois in December 2022. Moore's cousin-in-law, Samantha Cutler, told responding officers that there was no gun and that Moore was hallucinating after going without drinking for 4 days. She said that he was being non-violent, but was seeing things that weren't there and hearing voices in his head. Police body cam footage showed Moore laying in his bed in a severely confused and distressed state. He was unable to answer basic questions like what year it was and where he was. Officers continued talking to Earl while waiting for EMTs to arrive. At one point, he sat up and asked for water while sweating profusely. After a brief moment of mental clarity, he laid back down and moaned in discomfort as he thrashed and rolled around in his bed. By the time responding EMT Peggy Finley arrived, Moore had fallen out of bed and onto the floor. In police body cam footage, she could be seen standing over Moore and repeatedly barking at him to sit up. She told Moore to quit acting stupid and flat out refused to help him to the ambulance, telling him that he could either get up and go to a hospital or be left behind at the house. Earl fell several times as police helped him to the ambulance, where he was strapped face down on a stretcher. He became unresponsive at some point and was declared dead at the hospital after attempts to resuscitate him failed. The coroner ruled that Moore died from compression and positional asphyxia, which resulted from him being improperly placed on the stretcher. Finley and Cadigan were each charged with first-degree murder. Prosecutors have accused the defendants of failing to take Moore's vitals during the ambulance ride, which they claimed might have alerted them that something was wrong in time to save his life. In addition to criminal charges, the EMTs are facing a wrongful death lawsuit brought by Earl's family. 3. Louis Langley. Over a 6-month period in 2022, former Pussycat doll Ashley Roberts was allegedly stalked by a man who routinely loitered outside her workplace in London. Roberts, who works as a DJ at a radio station, accused 47-year-old Louis Langley of spending the entire day outside her workplace on multiple occasions. She claimed that Langley was often there when she arrived at 6 o'clock in the morning and when she left at the end of her shift, and also accused him of stationing himself outside her apartment building. According to prosecutors, CCTV cameras captured footage of Langley passing the time by jogging in place and practicing high kicks. He also allegedly left items outside the building for Roberts, blew kisses at her, and tried to follow her as she got into her car one day. The unwanted contact eventually became so bothersome that Roberts was being escorted to and from her car by security when she came and went from her workplace. Langley was eventually arrested for stalking. He told police that he and Roberts were in a relationship and that they interacted on social media, even though the evidence showed that Roberts ignored her accused stalker. In court, the defense argued that Langley acted impulsively and that his behavior wasn't alarming or distressing enough to qualify him for a stalking conviction. Langley was acquitted of the charge, and the judge imposed a 3-year restraining order, banning him from contacting or going near Roberts. 2. Joseph Slider. 59-year-old Joseph Slider and ex-wife Mary Ellen were watching TV together at his apartment in Delaware one evening in 2018 when they began to argue while high on meth and PCP. During the disagreement, Slider shot Mary 6 times with a .22 caliber handgun. He then told a neighbor about what had happened, dialed 911, and waited in his vehicle for police to arrive. Mary Ellen was found dead with multiple gunshot wounds, including 2 to the head. Slider told responding officers that after he and Mary Ellen got high, he began to hallucinate and believed that they were characters in a biker gang TV show they were watching. He said that he thought the other bikers on the show were going to hurt him, and he became convinced that Mary Ellen had killed his character's mother. Based on these details, news sources speculated that the pair were watching the Sons of Anarchy spin-off, Mayans MC. According to Newsweek, one of the show's main plot points revolved around the death of character Ezekiel "Easy" Ray's mother. The season finale, which revealed the identity of the killer, came out the same weekend Mary Ellen was killed. Authorities charged Slider with first-degree murder and 2 gun-related counts. He pleaded guilty to a reduced second-degree murder charge and 1 count of possessing a firearm during the commission of a felony, and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. 1. James Kelly. 2 concert-goers were killed, and 3 were wounded in June of 2023 when a hallucinating gunman opened fire on a crowd at an electronic music festival in Quincy, Washington. According to court documents, 26-year-old James M. Kelly was seen retrieving a gun from his vehicle and firing multiple shots at engaged couple Brandy Escamilla and Jocelyn Ruiz, killing them both. A bystander named Andrew Quadra was shot in the torso as he rushed to help the victims. Kelly's girlfriend, Lily Luxish, called 911 as the violence continued. The gunman proceeded to shoot a security guard who was responding to the gunfire before firing 2 bullets into his girlfriend's foot and leg. Kelly was taken into custody after being shot by an undercover officer. The accused killer, who was an active-duty soldier at the time of the crime, told detectives that he had taken psychedelic mushrooms, which made him believe that the world was ending. Based on the allegations put forth in his court filings, it appears as though Escamilla and Ruiz were innocent bystanders who were targeted at random. Kelly faces 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of first-degree assault, and 1 count of first-degree domestic violence assault. Thanks for watching. Would you have an easier time overlooking the behavior of a pathological liar who fibs constantly and seems to genuinely believe their own tall tales? Or a typically normal and respectable person who smashed your car window out because they thought they were fighting zombies while high on drugs? Because they thought they were fighting zombies while high on drugs. Let us know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. See you soon. Bye.